What's up? So this is Dorian. I commute through Toronto all the time, and anyway, so I'm complaining about streets. I've got this point I want to make about how these are all the major streets in Toronto. They define the city. They connect us all. They are the only roads that you can reliably take through obstacles like rail lines and green areas and all that kind of stuff. So everybody has to use them. Like drivers want to just be like, oh, we'll just put bike lanes and paths and whatever. But cyclists have to use these streets one way or the other. We also pay for them just as much as drivers do. There's no real sense in keeping them as these crazy anti-cycling barrier to, accessible transportation type of, these streets really serve only the auto industry. So I want to criticize this. First of all, we got loads of space on these streets. They're all basically the same. We got like barely enough room for one person to walk single file. You can see, it's not really, can't really walk next to your buddy and pass somebody. You got to walk behind your buddy. That's ghetto. And they're all the same. Look at that. Barely any sidewalk space, nowhere to bike, 5 lanes for vehicles. It's just insulting. It's insulting to civilization. It's really silly. And the priority is really obvious. And it's, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't have to be like this. So, imagine if all these streets had bike lanes on them. How easy would it be to get around the city? It would be ridiculously easy. So here's how, there's a few ways to do it. If you want to widen the sidewalks and add bike lanes at the same time, which most of these streets need, then you just put a bike lane on each side and an extra sidewalk on each side. You just start out by widening the sidewalk. The rest of it automatically becomes a bike lane. And if you want to embellish on that, you put posts along the bike lane or highway dividers or whatever the heck you need. But basically, just widening the sidewalk enough to have a civilized lifestyle, enough to break through this bogus vision of what transportation and commuting should be like, and actually graduate into sort of a more modern vision. That's the most simple way, is you just turn all these 4-lane roads that people hate living next to because it's crappy, it's super noisy, it's super polluted, it just sucks, and they suck to drive on because everybody's so competitive because there's 2 lanes and there's all this passing. And the only reason there's so many cars on them is because you can't do anything else with these stupid streets. So, you can do the sidewalk widening. You get an automatic bike lane, barriers or no barriers, whatever. Or you can decide, we're just going to run a bidirectional bike lane down one of these lanes, and we only have to lose 1 lane of traffic. Pedestrians are still screwed, and it's done. And cyclists get to pass each other because they can go into the other direction lane. So then, whatever. That's one idea. So, you could do different things with different roads, but if I had to pick, I'd just go with the sidewalk widening because this is so stupid. You need to be able to walk around. This is dumb. Look at these poor people. They're like, oh, this is nice. This is nice. We can walk next to each other. Between when we had to go be one behind the other there, and when we'll have to do the same thing there. It's retarded. La 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 la. No reason, no purpose. But it would be so easy to just fix them. Like the minimum grid, the complete streets thing, the just adding bike lanes thing, it all leads to the same conclusion. You just end up with a heck of a lot less noise, a heck of a lot less traffic, and more civilized traffic. Because, I mean, if Ontario drivers could deal with having two lanes, a passing lane then that would be cool. Like, that would be awesome. But they just can't maintain their cool. One thing that doesn't really, I don't think, for most of these roads work very well is to simply try and cinch in the lanes so they're all narrower. Like, you could, right here on Bathurst, you could do that. You could cinch in this lane a little bit right to there. Cinch in this one over to there, and then paint a bike lane there. But vehicles are too wide, you know, and cement trucks need to pass each other too, apparently, if there's two lanes. So this is how much room a cement truck needs, or a city bus, or something like that. So I don't think narrowing these is the best idea. And I also don't think putting in super wide single lane bike lanes with big double line here type of things so that drivers can still drive right next to each other. That's like the stupidest way to implement a bike lane. That's the stupidest possible type of bike lane that I've ever seen, and it's so dumb. Unless there's a divider, hey, that's great. Then you can pass and you get one in each direction. That's awesome. You know, if this was just a row of posts down here and two bike lanes here, one curb bike lane and one passing bike lane, that would be so dope. That would be great. That would be awesome for joggers too, because they could just jog in the slower narrow lane and stuff. So that'd probably be the eventual future, is that we'll have two narrow lanes and one wide lane going in each direction. And the narrow lanes will just be for cyclists, joggers, you know, scooter people, motorcycle people, whatever. That's probably how things will end up. I think the most practical solution. But in the interim, for right now, God, it would be so easy to widen these goddamn sidewalks. Like, this is, I mean, in places like this, you know, we got these vast stretches where putting in a bike lane, this is sort of a good example, but there's even better examples out there. On a lot of these roads, there's these huge, huge, huge stretches where you can totally just ride between the sidewalk and the road, but it sucks, and there's no reason for it to suck. There could be a bike lane right there. There's no reason for it not to be there. So there's a lot of these that actually wouldn't have to touch the road to have full accessibility. It's really a joke to look at these sidewalks. They're like intentionally narrow for no specific reason. It's like it's just there to keep pedestrians down. It's like, what's wrong with a little walking, bro? And you can see nobody's doing it in these hoods. It's obvious why. It's like, you don't want to walk next to these 4 lanes. But you have to, because you're going to your car. Oh, look, these guys are having a good time. Yeah. So yeah, bike lanes on all the mains. Yay.